Sit back, relax, and welcome to Reading Hours. Today's book is A Song of Ice and Fire, A Feast for Crows by R.R. Martin. Please let us know in the comments from where you are watching, or if there is a book you want us to summarize in future. By the time A Feast for Crows was published in 2005, George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire had already earned a fierce and devoted following. The first three novels, A Game of Thrones, A Clash of Kings, and A Storm of Swords, delivered a breathtaking tapestry of war, betrayal, power, and prophecy, each more brutal and shocking than the last. Fans eagerly awaited the next installment, expecting it to build directly on the climactic events of A Storm of Swords, which saw the downfall of kings, the rise of unexpected powers, and the unraveling of long-held alliances. But A Feast for Crows arrived as something different. Slower, more introspective, and less packed with the explosive twists that defined its predecessor. It took readers deeper into the political decay of Westeros after the War of the Five Kings. Rather than continuing every storyline, Martin made the bold decision to split the narrative in two. A Feast for Crows focuses on certain characters and regions: the South, King's Landing, the Iron Islands, and Dorne, while others, such as Jon Snow, Daenerys Targaryen, and Tyrion Lannister, are held back for the next volume, A Dance with Dragons. This structural gamble led to mixed reactions. Some praised the novel's nuance and thematic depth, while others were frustrated by the absence of fan-favorite characters. But even without dragons or White Walkers, A Feast for Crows remains an essential piece of Martin's saga, a study of power's aftermath, the cost of ambition, and the uneasy vacuum left behind when war quiets but justice never comes. Thematically, the book is a meditation on the remnants of war. Westeros is not at peace, but at a stalemate, a haunted kingdom populated by broken lords, vengeful queens, scheming clergy, and restless outcasts. The Iron Throne is more fragile than ever, and everyone who survived the storm now picks through the wreckage, desperate to claim what's left. Now, as we turn the page into the fourth act of this epic, we begin our journey not with a hero, but with a shadow, a faceless girl walking the streets of a foreign city. From Braavos to the Iron Islands, from the towers of Old Town to the sands of Dorne, the Game of Thrones continues, but its players are fewer, hungrier, and more dangerous than ever. The story opens far from the familiar halls of Westeros, across the narrow sea, in the quiet, fog-draped streets of Braavos. A girl, once known by many names, Arya Stark among them, walks the city now without a past, only a future shaped by shadow and silence. Under the alias Cat of the Canals, she arrives at the House of Black and White, the somber temple of the many-faced god. The order that dwells within offers mercy, but at price. Here, death is not an end but a service. Arya is offered a place among the faceless men, but the path ahead demands she shed her former self. Even her name, it is not an easy shedding. Her memories of Winterfell, her father's face, and her brother Jon still whisper to her in the night. As the priests of death demand she forget, Arya clings to fragments of identity like shards of ice buried in the river. Back in Westeros, the realm is weary. The War of the Five Kings has burned through the land, and though the fighting has lessened, the wounds remain deep. In King's Landing, Queen Cersei Lannister now rules as regent, her young son Tommen seated on the Iron Throne after the death of his brother Joffrey. The capital breathes uneasily beneath her reign. Cersei is suspicious of everyone, trusting only her own power and wit, and even that often betrays her. With Tywin Lannister dead, felled by his own son Tyrion, who vanished into the shadows, Cersei believes herself the only capable hand left to steer the kingdom. But where Tywin was cold and calculating, Cersei is proud, impulsive, and increasingly paranoid. The High Septon, the head of the Faith of the Seven, is dead, murdered in the streets by commoners. This outrage, combined with rising religious fervor, paves the way for the rise of a new spiritual power in the city. A barefoot holy man known as the High Sparrow begins gathering followers, preaching humility and condemning the excesses of the nobility. Cersei, dismissing him at first, eventually appoints him High Septon to consolidate power, unaware that she is creating a threat she will later be unable to control. Elsewhere in the south, in the sun-drenched kingdom of Dorne, the Martells mourn the death of Prince Oberyn, slain in King's Landing by Sir Gregor Clegane. Though Oberyn died seeking vengeance, his daughters, the Sand Snakes, now demand retribution. They press their uncle, Prince Doran Martell, to go to war against the Lannisters. But Doran, ever cautious and methodical, holds back. He watches, he listens, he waits. His physical frailty hides a keen political mind. He knows that vengeance must be patient, or it becomes suicide. Meanwhile, the Iron Islands stir once more. The death of Balon Greyjoy leaves a power vacuum. His daughter, Asha, seeks to claim her father's crown, but the Ironborn have never crowned a woman. Instead, the Kingsmoot is called a rare and ancient ritual where the captains and kings of the Iron Islands choose their leader by voice and acclaim. From the salt-washed shores of the islands return many would-be kings, but one stands apart, Euron Crow's-Eye, Balon's brother, a feared and exiled pirate with strange ambitions and darker secrets. He arrives with black sails and promises of dragon eggs and world conquest. His words seduce the Ironborn, and he takes the Seastone chair, declaring his intention to build a new empire of salt and smoke. On the mainland, Brienne of Tarth continues her solemn vow. She rides through the war-torn riverlands searching for Sansa Stark, who many believe is still alive and possibly held by Petyr Baelish. Brienne's path is one of honor, yet it is marked by sorrow and decay. The riverlands are scattered with broken men, bandits, and ruins. The Freys, now allies of the Lannisters, hold parts of the land, but hatred festers against them for the Red Wedding. Brienne meets with peasants and outlaws, gathering whispers of a she-wolf roaming the woods, and of a silent brotherhood dispensing rough justice to Lannister men. Her search becomes less about a destination and more about preserving something of knighthood in a world that seems to have forgotten what that word once meant. In the citadel of Old Town, a young novice named Pate seeks purpose. His tale begins with love, or at least the illusion of it, as he pines for a girl who serves in a tavern. Desperate to impress her, he agrees to steal a key for a shadowy figure known only as the Alchemist. That key unlocks doors meant only for the Archmeisters, and its theft portends something dark slithering into the heart of knowledge itself. Pate's fate appears sealed when the coin changes hands. Death, once again, rides behind a friendly smile. Though the bloodiest battles of the war have ended, the game is far from over. Ravens carry news across fractured lands. the Vale remains largely untouched by war, and under the stewardship of Littlefinger, now guardian of the sickly Lord Robert Arryn, it becomes a quiet and powerful piece on the board. Petyr Baelish weaves his schemes around Sansa Stark, now posing as his bastard daughter, Elaine. He feeds her flattery, teaches her manipulation, and plans to marry her into power, seeing in her both a key and a reflection. The snows fall gently over the Eyrie, but the storms yet to come are written in every whispered promise. All across the realm, from the drowned shores of Pike to the flower-strewn gardens of Sunspear, from the ashes of Harrenhal to the moonstone towers of Old Town, the aftermath of war breeds new players and new dangers. Some seek power, others seek justice, and still others seek only survival. The great lions have roared, but now the crows descend, hungry for what remains. In the silence that follows war, the dead do not rest. They whisper, they rise, and some walk again, not as they were, but as reminders of debts unpaid. The riverlands, once fertile and vibrant, now wear the scars of war like open wounds. Smoke still lingers in the air, rising from blackened villages and trampled fields. Into this broken heart of Westeros rides Brienne of Tarth, her journey driven by an unshakable sense of duty. Her armor is dented, her horse weary, but her resolve remains ironclad. She bears Oathkeeper, the Valyrian steel sword gifted to her by Jaime Lannister, and with it the charge to find Sansa Stark and protect her. Though she has no proof Sansa still lives, the oath means everything to her. And in a land where oaths have become whispers on the wind, Brienne's is a rarity, a promise unbroken. Her search leads her from village to village, where she hears scattered tales. A girl with auburn hair seen on the road, a maid in a Vale lord's retinue. Rumors contradict and blur, but one detail surfaces more than once: a group of outlaws that call themselves the Brotherhood without banners. But they are not the same idealists led once by Beric Dondarrion. Something has shifted. There are whispers now of hangings and of a silent, hooded woman at their helm, a woman whose throat bears the mark of death. Unbeknownst to Brienne, this is Lady Stoneheart, the resurrected and vengeful Catelyn Stark, brought back to life by Beric's sacrifice. Her voice may be gone, but her hatred remains sharp, and she remembers every betrayal. Far to the south, Cersei Lannister holds court in the Red Keep with a clenched jaw and an increasingly erratic grip on power. With her father dead and her brother Tyrion vanished, she assumes full control over the royal court as regent to young King Tommen. But where Tywin once inspired respect and fear in equal measure, Cersei inspires doubt, resentment, and intrigue. Her decisions, guided more by pride and suspicion than wisdom, begin to isolate her. She surrounds herself with flatterers and yes men, while exiling or discrediting anyone who questions her rule. Her uncle Kevin, once a trusted advisor, is dismissed. Her brother Jaime, now estranged, is no longer her confidant or lover. Alone, she begins to plant seeds of power that soon threaten to consume her. The faith of the Seven, long diminished in influence, finds new life in the figure of the High Sparrow. He is not what Cersei expected. Thin, humble, and barefoot, he commands loyalty not through grandeur, but by living the humility he preaches. He feeds the poor, condemns the wicked, noble or not, and grows a following among the common people that even the crown cannot ignore. Cersei believes she can manipulate him. She restores the militant orders of the faith, thinking their swords will serve her crown. But the High Sparrow serves only his god, and his silence carries a weight heavier than gold. While Cersei plays her games in King's Landing, the Iron Islands stir with ambition. Euron Greyjoy's ascent to kingship is not unchallenged. His niece, Asha, had hoped to rule. She has courage, command, and the loyalty of many, but the Kingsmoot chooses spectacle over sense. Euron returns from exile with promises of dragons, with talk of marrying Daenerys Targaryen, and using her beasts to conquer Westeros. He speaks of ancient, dark magics, of warships spanning the seas, and the Ironborn, always hungry for conquest, rally behind his mad vision. Asha refuses to yield quietly. Though she knows the Kingsmoot is lost, she begins forging her own plans. She sails with a small fleet, hoping to carve out a stronghold for herself before Euron can fully consolidate power. But every sea she sails grows darker under his shadow, and the Ironborn, drawn to chaos, begin to splinter into rival factions. In the Vale of Arryn, a different kind of game unfolds. Petyr Baelish, known more widely as Littlefinger, continues to orchestrate his quiet conquest through charm, calculation, and lies. He now rules the Vale as Lord Protector for the sickly boy Robert Arryn. But his true investment lies with the girl he presents as his bastard daughter, Elaine Stone. She is Sansa Stark in disguise, and the lessons she learns here are not of swords or survival, but of masks and manipulation. Littlefinger carefully molds Sansa, teaching her how to lie with grace, how to read a room, and how to navigate the razor-thin line between danger and safety. He spins stories to the Lords of the Vale, promising peace while plotting further upheaval. He speaks of a wedding that will elevate Sansa, restore the Stark name, and reclaim the North. But his intentions, always murky, are laced with desire and ambition. Sansa watches and learns, and though she is still young, the girl who once dreamed of songs and gallant knights is slowly being replaced by a woman forged in secrecy and shadow. Back in King's Landing, Jaime Lannister chooses distance over conflict. With his sister's grip tightening on the city and her paranoia deepening, Jaime rides west to restore order in the Riverlands. The Freys, newly allied with House Lannister through marriage and murder, are proving unreliable. Riverrun, still held by Brynden Tully, the Blackfish, refuses to surrender. Jaime, bearing his father's legacy like a stone around his neck, hopes to bring the siege to an end without further bloodshed. But the Riverlands are no longer a place of reason. They are haunted by ghosts and ruled by grief. Jaime must navigate fractured loyalties, old wounds, and his own internal reckoning. The man who once pushed a child from a tower is not gone, but he is quieter now, replaced by one who looks at war and wonders if all the blood was worth it. In Riverrun's looming towers and on its muddy fields, he will face not only the Blackfish, but the truth of what kind of man he wants to become. As the pieces move across Westeros, slowly, deliberately, the winds of winter do not howl just yet, but the air grows colder. Power shifts not through grand battles, but through whispers in back rooms, promises made in gardens, and secrets buried in silence. The war for the Iron Throne has given way to a quieter, more insidious game. And while some kings have fallen, others are still rising, often unseen, often underestimated. In the heart of the Riverlands, Brienne's journey stretches onward, each mile stitched with uncertainty and weariness. She follows rumors like they are threads in a tangled tapestry, pulling one only to find it frayed or false. Her quest to find Sansa Stark becomes a pilgrimage of loneliness and quiet horror. passing through war-torn hamlets and burned-out halls. The small folk view her with suspicion, tall, broad, armored, and strange. She is mocked as Brienne the Beauty, a cruel echo of her youth. Yet she endures it all, never once wavering from the oath she made. Every step she takes seems to remind her of how deeply the realm has sunk into chaos. Alongside her travels, she begins to gather odd companions. Sir Hyle Hunt, a knight once guilty of mocking her, now joins her path, insisting his motives have changed. Brienne doubts him, but need and desperation forge strange alliances. They are later joined by a hedge knight named Dick Crabb, a man of old blood and wild stories who claims descent from a line of kings long forgotten. Together, they move through a realm no longer ruled by banners or law, only by vengeance and fear. Their path brings them face to face with the darker edges of justice. Brienne encounters villagers who speak of a woman with a band of outlaws hanging Freys and Lannisters alike, dispensing death without trial. The image gnaws at Brienne, though she cannot guess the truth, that Lady Catelyn Stark, once noble and kind, has risen again, twisted by death into a silent and pitiless judge. Though Brienne's vow was to protect her daughter, the ghost of the mother looms ever closer. Farther south, the heat of Dorne pulses beneath golden skies and windswept dunes. The death of Oberyn Martell in King's Landing has shaken House Martell to its core. Prince Doran, Oberyn's elder brother, sits in Sunspear, plagued by gout and guarded silence. He rules with patience, but many mistake it for weakness. His daughter Arya sees it as cowardice, and her blood runs hot with fury. Oberyn's daughters, the Sand Snakes, each born of different women but united by vengeance, are wild and dangerous. They want war, justice for their father, and fire to rain down on the Lannisters. But Doran does not move. Arya watches her father with growing frustration. She knows he must be planning something, but his silence is suffocating. To her, every day without action is another insult to Oberyn's legacy. She devises her own plan, bold, reckless, and born from the old Dornish pride. She aims to crown Miechella Baratheon, the rightful heir by Dornish law, over her younger brother Tommen. In the laws of Dorne, daughters inherit before younger sons, and Arya sees in Miechella a political weapon, one that could ignite change across the realm. But secrets in Dorne run deeper than sand, and what she doesn't know will unravel everything she believes. In Old Town, far from the courts of kings and queens, a different kind of war is brewing, one of knowledge, secrecy, and shadow. The Citadel, seat of the Maesters, is a place where learning is revered above politics. But not all knowledge is innocent, and not all Maesters serve only truth. Pate, a humble apprentice, dreams of earning his first link of the Maester's chain, and of winning the affection of a serving girl named Rosie. But his desire makes him vulnerable, and it is through Pate's eyes that readers glimpse the quiet corruption creeping into the world of scholars. When a man known only as the alchemist offers Pate a golden dragon in exchange for a key, temptation overrides wisdom. The key opens doors to the deepest knowledge in the Citadel, books, secrets, possibly even magic long thought dead. The alchemist's face is forgettable, but his eyes are knowing. He is not what he seems. When Pate hands over the key, he does so thinking it will change his life. And it does, just not in the way he imagined. Meanwhile, Samwell Tarly arrives in Old Town under a different kind of burden. He has been sent south by Jon Snow, the new Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, tasked with studying the ancient lore that might help them fight the darkness rising beyond the wall. Sam travels with Gilly, her baby, and Maester Aemon, now frail and dying. The old Maester knows the world is changing, and he senses something terrible taking shape across the sea. He speaks of dragons reborn, of prophecies coming alive, but his voice grows weaker each day. By the time they reach Old Town, Maester Aemon is near death. The Citadel does not welcome Sam with warmth, and the Brothers of Knowledge treat Aemon's warnings about Daenerys Targaryen with the cold dismissal of skeptics. Dragons, they say, are gone. Prophecy is folly. Sam, still unsure of his strength, is caught between duty and doubt. He must study, spy, and survive in a place where knowledge can be a weapon, and truth is often buried beneath a mountain of scrolls. Back in the capital, Cersei continues to entangle herself in plots and illusions. Her paranoia grows like rot in wood, spreading through every corner of the Red Keep. She appoints allies not for their competence, but for their loyalty to her person. The council becomes a farce, puppets, and fools occupying positions of power. She authorizes the building of a new fleet and demands gold from the faith, believing herself above their retribution. She strengthens the faith militant, thinking she can control them. But each move she makes tightens the snare she cannot see. She places her trust in a young Tyrell cousin, Sir Osney, to seduce Queen Margaery and provide evidence of her adultery. If the plot succeeds, Cersei believes Margaery will be destroyed and the Tyrells weakened. But secrets and lies are slippery things, and once whispered, they gain lives of their own. Cersei does not see how fragile her power has become, nor how many watch her with knives behind their backs. As Westeros limps into uneasy peace, blood still soaks its soil, and the war's cost continues to rise. Some seek vengeance, others power, and still others simply a way to survive. The great houses fight in shadows now, not fields. Their weapons are rumors, marriages, assassins, and secrets. And in the quiet corners of the realm, among the ruins, the Maesters, the forgotten, old forces begin to stir again, whispering of things long buried, of fire, of death, and of winter's return. In the reaches of the Vale, the winds whisper through mountain passes and high roads, where politics and protection intertwine beneath the shadow of the Eyrie. Sansa Stark, cloaked in the identity of Elaine Stone, the supposed bastard daughter of Petyr Baelish, finds herself navigating a world far more insidious than the battlefield. She is no longer a girl blindly dreaming of gallant knights and courtly love. She is learning the rules of a new game, one where deception is the key to survival. Petyr, ever the spider weaving webs within webs, continues to tighten his control over the Vale. With Lord Jon Arryn dead and his son, the young and sickly Lord Robert Arryn in Petyr's care, the Lord Protector rules from behind the boy's name. He surrounds himself with lords of middling ambition and feigned loyalty, ever testing them, measuring their usefulness. Elaine, meanwhile, becomes a pupil in manipulation. She watches Littlefinger maneuver people like pieces on a Syvas board, promising rewards, while laying quiet threats behind honeyed words. Sansa's time in the Vale is one of internal transformation. She tends to Robert during his seizures and tantrums, comforts him through tears, and soothes his paranoia. It is an exhausting role, one she fulfills not out of affection, but out of necessity. Petyr whispers promises to her in private, painting pictures of power and safety, of a future where she will reclaim her name and her birthright. Yet even as she listens, She begins to see through him, understanding his motives, sensing the danger in his gaze. The man who betrayed her father, who married and murdered her Aunt Lysa, is no savior. He is something colder. She learns to smile at him without flinching. Elsewhere in Westeros, the Iron Islands stir with ambition. The death of Balon Greyjoy has created a vacuum not yet filled. Traditionally, the kingship would pass to his son, but with Theon missing, thought dead or worse, attention turns to his siblings. Ashag Greyjoy, fierce and independent, believes the Seastone chair should be hers. She has fought, commanded, raided. She has earned the respect of sailors and warriors alike. But her claim is not guaranteed. The Ironborn are not easily swayed by blood alone. They crave strength, salt, and the roar of the sea. Victarion Greyjoy, Balon's brother, returns from his campaigns at sea, weathered and solemn, carrying secrets and scars. His heart burns with both loyalty and resentment. He remembers his brother Euron all too well, a man exiled for dark deeds, including the seduction of Victarion's own salt wife. Yet it is Euron who returns to the Iron Islands with swagger and steel, sailing into the halls of his kin like a storm, bearing a Valyrian steel horn said to control dragons, a promise as terrifying as it is seductive. Euron's charisma and madness twist together into something magnetic. He claims he will wed Daenerys Targaryen and ride dragons across the seas to burn the world and rebuild it anew. His promises are vast, his eyes like chips of ice, and his ambition knows no bounds. At the Kingsmoot, an ancient ceremony where Ironborn choose their ruler through shouts and blades and votes, Euron's vision outshines all others. Ashas speaks boldly, but many cannot stomach the thought of a woman ruling. Victarion stands silent, burdened by doubt and old wounds. In the end, the driftwood crown is placed upon Euron's brow, and a dark tide begins to rise. Back in the war-ravaged riverlands, the remnants of battles long past still haunt the land. Brienne continues her search for Sansa Stark, pressing through danger, hearing tales both hopeful and grim. She finds herself questioning everything: her mission, her worth, her strength. Alongside Sir Hyle and Sir Dick Crabb, she pieces together a trail of false leads, abandoned inns, and nameless corpses. War has made the world unkind, and justice feels like a word spoken only in fairy tales. One encounter burns itself into her memory at an inn once called the Crossroads, where silence hangs like smoke and eyes watch from shadow. There, she speaks with Septon Maribald, a wandering priest whose wisdom and compassion seem out of place in this ravaged world. He speaks of broken men, soldiers once proud, now shattered by war, wandering without cause, clinging to violence like breath. His words linger in Brienne's mind. In a realm where oaths are broken and honor is mocked, she clings to her knightly vows, even as others call her foolish for it. The Riverlands are no longer ruled by kings, but by whispers and ghosts. The Brotherhood without banners, once noble outlaws defending the common folk, have changed. With the resurrection of Lady Catelyn Stark, now called Lady Stoneheart, they have become judges and executioners. Her voice stolen by death, her face half rotted, she commands her followers with gestures and silence, her thirst for vengeance driving every noose and blade. They hang Freys and Lannister men without trial, and the line between justice and murder fades like mist. Lady Stoneheart learns of Brienne's movements, of her connection to Jaime Lannister, and of her quest. Brienne's path begins to converge with those who once followed her lady mother, though they are not the same. She is taken captive and forced to choose between her honor and the life of her companions. The Brotherhood's justice is blind to loyalty and deaf to reasoning. They want oaths fulfilled, names condemned, and blood paid in full. Brienne, caught between her past and present, must face a truth more brutal than steel, that the war has not ended, only transformed, and the people it has broken are now turning on each other. Through every storyline, a common thread pulls the realm closer to collapse. Trust erodes, alliances fray. The peace is fragile, held together not by unity, but exhaustion. From the sea-swept cliffs of the Iron Islands to the frost-bitten heights of the Vale, from the whispering corridors of Old Town to the blood-soaked fields of the Riverlands, Westeros bleeds beneath the weight of its own sins. Yet amidst the decay, embers remain of loyalty, of justice, and of something yet unnamed. But winter is coming, and with it, the cold truth that not all fires endure. In the southern reaches of Westeros, far from the frost and steel of the north, the sun burns hot over Dorne. There, the legacy of Oberyn Martell bleeds into the hearts of his daughters and the dusty stones of Sunspear. His death at King's Landing, gruesome and public, has not been forgotten. The Sand Snakes, Oberyn's fierce and unbowed bastard daughters, bristle with grief and fury, each of them bearing their own idea of justice, each one ready to drag Dorne into a firestorm of vengeance. Obara, the eldest, demands war. Her father's death cannot go unanswered. She speaks of spears and ships, of raising banners and raining blood upon the Lannisters. Nymeria, clever and composed, sees power in diplomacy, in words sharpened like daggers. Tyene, soft-spoken and beautiful, hides a serpent's soul behind her golden curls and saintly smile. Together they are storm and sand, love and fury, and they threaten to fracture the quiet peace their uncle Doran Martell has so carefully preserved. Doran, ruling from the Water Gardens, is a man of caution. He walks with pain in his joints, slow and deliberate, not just in movement but in thought. Many mistake him for weak, but his mind is sharper than any blade. He sees farther than others, waits longer, and believes that vengeance should be served not with rage but with calculation. His silence is a strategy. He knows the wrong step could doom Dorne, and he is not ready to show his hand. Yet beneath the cool pools of the Water Gardens, secrets swirl like silt. Doran is not idle. His plans run deep, and his true intentions are revealed only to a trusted few. He has already sent his son, Quentyn Martell, across the sea on a mission tied to dragons and destiny. What looks like stillness is preparation. What seems like cowardice is merely patience disguised. In the bustling halls of King's Landing, the Iron Throne rests uneasily beneath the shadow of the Red Keep. Cersei Lannister, now Queen Regent in truth, reigns over a court filled with vultures, flatterers, and secret enemies. With her father Tywin dead, her son Tommen on the throne, and her brother Tyrion vanished, she sees enemies in every corner and trusts no one but herself. But where her father ruled through order and legacy, Cersei governs through fear and paranoia. Each decision she makes tightens the noose around her own rule. She surrounds herself with sycophants, men like Aurane Waters, handsome and ambitious, whom she names Grand Admiral and showers with favors. She places Qyburn, a disgraced former Maester, at the head of the Whisperers, replacing Varys. His experiments in the dark arts intrigue her more than the wisdom of old men in robes. And in the absence of sound counsel, her pride becomes her guiding star. Cersei's greatest fear remains Margaery Tyrell. The young queen is beautiful, beloved, and a threat to Cersei's fading influence. The city cheers for her. The faith smiles upon her. And Tommen, the boy king, is utterly enamored. Cersei sees poison in every smile and begins a campaign of whispers and traps to discredit and destroy her rival. She feeds the faith twisted truths, suggesting Margaery's infidelity, her wantonness, her supposed betrayal of the king. The wheels turn slowly, but Cersei believes she is winning. She always believes she is winning. The faith, meanwhile, grows bolder. The High Septon is replaced by a simple, barefooted man known only as the High Sparrow. Humble and soft-spoken, he carries the weight of righteousness with terrifying clarity. He is a man of conviction, uninterested in gold or titles, and his following swells with the poor, the hungry, and the devout. Cersei, believing she can use him to her advantage, grants the faith militant the right to bear arms once more, restoring an ancient power in the hope they will become her weapon. But fire given to zealots cannot be leashed so easily. Beyond the walls of King's Landing, Samwell Tarly sails south with Maester Aemon, Gilly, and her child. Their journey takes them to Old Town, the seat of the Citadel, where knowledge is forged into chains and wisdom is guarded like treasure. Sam has been sent to become a Maester to learn, to prepare for the war that all others ignore. Maester Aemon, old and nearly blind, dreams of dragons. He speaks of a song of ice and fire, of prophecies long buried, and names that echo across time. But the journey takes its toll. Aemon grows weaker with each passing day, his body failing even as his mind sharpens with final urgency. Sam struggles with duty and doubt. He has faced whites and white walkers, held a blade in fear, taken a lover in silence. Now, among scholars and stone, he feels out of place again, as he did at Castle Black. Yet there is something in him that endures. At sea, he sees the world broaden. He sees the beginnings of a storm most of Westeros refuses to acknowledge. When they finally arrive in Braavos, the free city of canals and stone, they find refuge in the House of Black and White, though their stay is brief. It is there that Aemon dies, whispering of Daenerys Targaryen, of her dragons, and of the great war to come. His death is quiet, but his final words are full of urgency. Sam feels them linger like embers in the back of his mind. Old Town awaits, a city older than the Iron Throne itself, where knowledge is hoarded like gold, and where secrets hide beneath candlelight and dust. Within its walls, men prepare for winters of the mind, not the sword. Yet something stirs even there. Shadows move in the citadel, and not all Maesters are loyal to the realm. A glass candle burns in the darkness, casting visions no one dares to speak of. And in the shadows, a man watches, a novice in name only, his eyes sharp, his purpose hidden. Everywhere across Westeros, cracks begin to show. The dragon sleeps in the east. The wolf is scattered in the north. The lion is cornered in the capital. And in the midst of it all, those who seek justice, revenge, or redemption edge, ever closer to fates none of them can yet see. The world is poised on the edge of change, quiet and terrible. And while the great lords still squabble over crowns, the true storm builds unseen. Across the sea, where the cold shadows of Westeros fade into the mists of salt and wind, a different storm brews. The Iron Islands, rugged and unyielding, mourn the death of their king. Balon Greyjoy, cold and lifeless upon the rocks, has left behind a throne of salt, a legacy of war, and a people restless for conquest. The sea does not weep for its kings, and the krakens of Pike do not die peacefully. Now, in the absence of clear succession, the old way rises again. Euron Greyjoy, Balon's exiled brother, returns as if conjured by the sea itself. With his pale eye and mocking smile, he walks into Pike bearing madness like a crown. He is no ordinary man. He speaks of power beyond ships and swords. He brings with him the eerie silence of far-off lands, the rumors of Valyria's shadow and the horn of dragons, an object so ancient and dangerous it seems born from the world's first screams. His presence is unsettling, his ambition unmeasurable. He claims to be the storm reborn, and many bend the knee out of fear, awe, or the sheer force of his vision. But the Ironborn are not so easily led. Victarion Greyjoy, Euron's grim and brutal brother, glares at him with distrust. Victarion is a man of the sea, built from muscle and obedience, loyal to tradition and the drowned god. Euron's madness unsettles him, but blood binds them, and for now he obeys. Still, Victarion harbors a quiet rage for the insult done to his pride, for the wife Euron took and destroyed, and for the gods that whisper vengeance into the waves. A Kingsmoot is called, the ancient rite where captains choose their ruler. Men and women from every corner of the islands gather, their voices rising like gulls over the surf. Ashag Greyjoy, Balon's only daughter, stakes her claim with fierce words and sharp wit. She speaks of a future where the Ironborn need not die for glory, where their sons need not drown for the pride of their fathers. Some listen, many scoff. For all her cleverness and strength, she is a woman, and the old way does not bend easily. The Kingsmoot unfolds like a storm. One by one, the captains speak. The sea surges with ambition, but in the end, it is Euron who wins the tide. He promises conquest, not of the Reach or the Westerlands, but of dragons. He speaks of Daenerys Targaryen far across the world and vows to bring her and her beasts to heel. With the dragon horn clutched in his gloved hands and madness gleaming in his eye, he is chosen king. The crowd roars, not with joy, but with awe and dread. The Kraken rises once more, this time not for plunder but for empire. Victarion is sent east with a fleet, bearing the horn and Euron's dark hopes. But within his heart, he does not intend to return as a servant. He sails with vengeance in mind, and a burning prayer that the gods will choose him, not his brother, as the true lord of sea and storm. Meanwhile, in the Riverlands, the ravages of war have left a land hollowed and weeping. House Frey, newly allied with House Lannister through betrayal and blood, holds the twins with iron resolve. But the curse of their crime at the Red Wedding lingers like smoke. The Brotherhood without banners, once noble in purpose, now follows a different path under new leadership. Lady Stoneheart, risen from death, silent and merciless, leads them not in justice, but in vengeance. She was once Catelyn Stark, but that woman is gone, drowned in sorrow and rage. Her justice is swift and final, her voice stolen by the noose that once ended her life. With cold eyes and a colder heart, she orders executions without mercy, and the Freys live in fear of the shadows. Brienne of Tarth, still honoring her vow to Catelyn, rides through these broken lands. Her quest is simple in words but monumental in burden. Find Sansa Stark and keep her safe. With Oathkeeper at her side and the ghosts of promises behind her, she trudges through the mud and ruin, offering aid where she can and asking questions few dare to answer. She is mocked, scorned, and sometimes threatened, but her resolve does not waver. Her honor is her armor, though it is a poor shield against treachery. Each town she visits bears the wounds of conflict. Broken men roam the countryside, hollow-eyed and hungry, clinging to old banners or none at all. The small folk whisper of hound sightings, of stark girls and lions in disguise. Brienne chases rumors and fades, hoping to find the girl before the world swallows her whole. With Podrick Payne, her loyal and awkward squire, she presses onward, despite wounds both physical and emotional. Her journey is lonely, but within her burns a light, a hope that honor still matters in a land that has forgotten it. In the Vale, high above the strife of the realm, political games flourish behind veils of silk and courtesy. Petter Baelish, ever the spider weaving threads into traps, tightens his hold over the young and impressionable Lord Robert Arryn. His ambition masks itself in smiles and honeyed words, but his schemes are as sharp as daggers. He holds Sansa Stark in quiet captivity, though she now moves under the name Elaine Stone, his bastard daughter in public fiction. Sansa, clever and watchful, learns the art of deception from a master. She listens and smiles, mimics and masks, learning the dangerous dance of politics with every whisper and lie. Petter speaks of a future where she will wed the heir to the Vale and reclaim Winterfell through craft rather than war. The girl who once dreamt of songs and heroes now walks a subtler path. She is still afraid, still uncertain, but her understanding deepens. The game is cruel, but she is learning how to play. And while lords feud and queens plot, the realm bleeds in places unseen. Winter creeps ever closer. The north remembers, but in the south, its chill is still just a rumor. Yet the wheels turn slowly, grinding down the old world. Kings rise and fall. Gods are invoked and ignored. Vows are made and broken. And across sea and stone, every soul walks toward a fate they cannot yet see. Far to the south, where the sun blazes across scorched dunes and pale stone towers, rise from the desert like the bones of giants. Dorne stands apart. The banners of House Martell still flutter in the hot wind, their red sun defiant against the blue sky. Yet beneath the serenity of the water gardens and the shade of lemon trees, quiet unrest simmers like heat off the sand. Prince Doran Martell, the cautious and gout-stricken ruler of Sunspear, has held his peace for years. He is a man of patience, of subtlety, a thinker in a land of fiery tempers. Many see this restraint as weakness. His late brother Oberyn, the Red Viper, had been his opposite. Bold, charismatic, a blade in motion. Oberyn's death in King's Landing, crushed by Sir Gregor Clegane in the name of the Lannisters, has left Dorne mourning and enraged. But grief is no match for the fury of Oberyn's daughters, the Sand Snakes. Obara, Nymeria, and Tyene, daughters of different mothers, bound by blood and vengeance, burn with desire to strike. They press their uncle for war, for retaliation, for fire to answer fire. Yet Doran does not bend. He is the sun behind clouds, waiting for the perfect hour to burn. He imprisons them, not out of cruelty, but necessity. He fears that their rage, however righteous, will doom them all before the game even begins. For Doran has plans, intricate and buried deep, stretching far beyond vengeance. His moves are not made for the present, but for a future few can yet imagine. Young Aryan Martell, the prince's daughter and heir to Dorne, watches all this with growing resentment. She has been kept in the dark, coddled, controlled. The line of succession weighs heavily on her, as does her father's refusal to act. She believes he means to pass her over in favor of her younger brother, Quentyn, who has long been absent from the court. Fueled by suspicion and pride, Aerion schemes to crown Miechella Baratheon as queen of the 7 kingdoms under Dornish law, where the eldest child, regardless of gender, holds the right of inheritance. Miechella, still innocent and sweet, is unaware of the storm brewing around her. Sent to Dorne as part of Tyrion Lannister's political games, she has become a symbol of rebellion. Aerion gathers loyalists, carefully and quietly, including Sir Ares Oakheart of the Kingsguard, who has become both her lover and her pawn. She intends to whisk Miechella away and spark a war that will force the realm to reckon with Dorne's strength. But secrets in Dorne do not stay buried long. The plan goes awry. Blood is spilled in the desert, and Miechella is gravely injured, her face savaged by Sir Gerald Dane, a man called Darkstar, who turns on them with no warning. The dream of rebellion ends in chaos. Aerion is captured, brought before her father in chains. She expects fury, but what she receives is worse: disappointment, sorrow, and the truth. Doran, calm as ever, reveals his deeper game. He had never intended to disinherit her. All his silence, all his inaction, was a shield, protecting a plot so delicate, so far-reaching, that even his own blood could not know it. He had sent Quentyn east to seek out Daenerys Targaryen and forge an alliance, a marriage between fire and sand. Doran is not playing for justice alone. He is playing for the future of Dorne, for dragons, and for a throne. Back in the heart of the 7 kingdoms, Cersei Lannister's grip on power continues to fray even as she clutches it with iron desperation. Her paranoia grows with every whisper in the court, every fleeting look from a lord she does not trust. She believes herself a lioness surrounded by vipers. But the danger is not just around her, it is within her, festering like rot behind gold. The Tyrells, once allies, are now seen as enemies. Margaery, cunning and beautiful, has become the thorn in Cersei's pride. The Queen Dowager watches her every move, seeing plots where there may be none, and ignoring threats that gather in the shadows. In her need to strike first, she commits folly after folly. She appoints fools to the small council, replaces competent men with flatterers, and alienates the nobility with arrogance and cruelty. To root out the supposed threat posed by Margaery, Cersei turns to the faith of the 7. She restores their military arm, the faith militant, believing she can control them, use them as a weapon cloaked in righteousness. But the faith, once given power, does not surrender it. Led by the enigmatic and fervent High Sparrow, they begin purging the corruption of the court, not just her enemies, but anyone who stands in defiance of their god. Cersei's schemes unravel. Her alliance with the Faith backfires spectacularly when the High Sparrow arrests Margaery for fornication and falsehood, and then turns his gaze upon Cersei herself. The charges mount: adultery, incest, murder. her trusted cousin and former lover, Lancel Lannister, confesses all. The queen is seized, stripped of her titles, and thrown into a cold, dark cell. No gold, no name, no crown can shield her now. Alone and unwashed, surrounded by silent, judging septas, Cersei begins to crack. Her dreams become fevered, haunted by the prophecy of Maggie the Frog, 3 children with golden crowns and golden shrouds, a younger, more beautiful queen to cast her down, and a death at the hands of the Valonqar. Her mind races with faces, Margaery, Sansa, Daenerys, and with fear. Her pride, her rage, her certainty, all are tested in the suffocating dark of confinement. Far from the capital, Brienne of Tarth continues her hopeless quest across the war-torn riverlands. Each village she passes through is more broken than the last. Starving children, hanging men, shattered homes. The Brotherhood without banners, once champions of justice, now enact swift and terrible vengeance under their resurrected mistress. Brienne seeks Sansa, but it is another girl, another Stark, Arya, who dances in the fog of rumor, often confused, often lost. But Brienne presses on. Her search takes her to the quiet isle, where the dead are buried and the broken find peace. Here, she speaks with a kind and gentle Septon who knows too much. He hints at a man long thought dead, a hound laid to rest, but whose grave seems suspiciously filled by another. He tells her of mercy, of redemption, of the futility of vengeance. But Brienne cannot stop. Oathkeeper is heavy in her hands, and the weight of promises unfulfilled pulls her onward. Each character, from the sunlit towers of Dorne to the blood-soaked fields of the Riverlands, moves toward a fate shaped not by heroism or prophecy alone, but by pride, fear, ambition, and hope. And beyond it all, the realm itself begins to tremble. The cracks are widening. The dead are not done, and winter draws ever closer. In the aftermath of Balon Greyjoy's death, the Iron Islands are consumed by the tumult of succession. With the king dead and no clear heir declared, the seafaring people of the Ironborn prepare for a kingsmoot, an ancient custom that has not been used in centuries. Unlike traditional Westerosi succession, where lineage holds sway, the kingsmoot allows captains and nobles to choose a ruler by acclamation. This practice, rooted in their old ways, reflects the Ironborn's emphasis on strength, plunder, and charisma over birthright. The stage is set for a contentious gathering on Old Wick, one that could redefine the future of the Iron Islands. Victarion Greyjoy, Balon's brother, emerges as a key contender. A hulking, brutal warrior and the Lord Captain of the Iron Fleet, Victarion seeks the throne with the quiet intensity of a man used to war more than politics. His campaign is aided by Aeron Damfair, the devout priest of the drowned god, who believes he can guide the Ironborn back to their purer, harsher roots. But Aeron's zealous faith is shaken when a new, more dangerous player enters the kingsmoot. Euron Greyjoy, the eldest of Balon's brothers, recently returned from exile. Euron is a different breed altogether. Known as Crow's Eye, he exudes a chilling charisma and fearsome confidence, claiming to have sailed to the ends of the known world and returned with arcane knowledge and dark treasures. His presence electrifies the kingsmoot, especially when he unveils a legendary prize, the Dragonbinder, a massive horn said to control dragons. Euron proclaims his intention to marry Daenerys Targaryen and use her dragons to conquer the 7 kingdoms. His offer is intoxicating, promising not just raids and plunder, but empire and destiny. Victarion watches, stunned, as support slips away. Euron's promise of glory seduces the captains, and despite Victarion's strength and Aeron's preaching, the Ironborn rally behind the audacity of Crow's Eye. Euron is chosen king. Victarion, furious and humiliated, seethes under the surface, but he obeys. Euron gives him a task that seems a slight as much as it is a mission. He is to sail to Slaver's Bay and retrieve Daenerys for Euron to wed. Though Victarion appears loyal, his thoughts betray him. He considers claiming the Dragon Queen for himself, fueling a slow, burning rebellion from within. Meanwhile, back in Old Town, the Citadel becomes a center of rising intrigue. Samwell Tarly continues his training as a Maester, though his mind often drifts to Gilly and the baby she nurses. Their presence draws suspicion among the Maesters, who are uneasy about the implications of Jon Snow's orders and Sam's loyalty to the Night's Watch. Archmaester Marwyn, an unconventional and mystical figure with interests in the arcane, becomes a key ally to Sam. He warns of the Citadel's disdain for magic and prophecy, believing the Maesters are actively suppressing knowledge of dragons and the supernatural. Marwyn tells Sam that the world is changing and that dragons are returning. He believes that the coming of prophecy, magic, and Targaryens threatens the rational, orderly world the Maesters have built. Learning of Daenerys' dragons, he immediately departs for Meereen aboard a ship, hoping to reach her before others do. Sam is left behind to continue his training, but the encounter sparks a deep anxiety about the role of knowledge in a world teetering on the edge of magical upheaval. Elsewhere in Dorne, the Sand Snakes, Oberyn Martell's daughters, become restless. Their father's brutal death at the hands of Gregor Clegane has left them burning for vengeance. But Prince Doran, Oberyn's elder brother, counsels patience and strategy over bloodlust. Though outwardly feeble and withdrawn, Doran is no fool. He is orchestrating a long game, one that involves marriage alliances, political maneuvering, and quiet diplomacy. Yet his restraint places him at odds with the firebrands within his court. The younger generation, led by Obara, Nymeria, and Tyene, clamor for war against the Lannisters. Doran must tread carefully, balancing the fury of Oberyn's legacy with his own ambitions for Dorne's future. In the Riverlands, the Brotherhood without banners continues their guerrilla campaign against Lannister forces, but something within the group has shifted. No longer are they merely outlaws seeking justice in a lawless land. Their new leader, Lady Stoneheart, rules with a chilling resolve. Once Catelyn Stark, now reanimated by Beric Dondarrion's dying sacrifice, she is a vengeful specter, unrelenting in her hatred for those she sees as Lannister sympathizers. Her trials are brutal, her executions swift. The Brotherhood's former ideals of justice are replaced with blood-soaked vengeance. Brienne of Tarth, still in search of Sansa Stark, continues her journey through this ravaged region. Her encounters paint a grim picture of a land broken by war and betrayal. Alongside Podrick Payne, she meets soldiers, bandits, and common folk who have suffered immensely. Her idealism and vow to protect the innocent are tested at every turn. Eventually, Brienne finds herself at the mercy of Lady Stoneheart, who condemns her for bearing a sword forged by a Lannister and for serving Jaime. Brienne is given a cruel ultimatum: die or betray Jaime Lannister. Her answer, left unspoken as the chapter ends, hangs in chilling silence. In King's Landing, the city grows darker. Cersei's missteps and paranoia begin to manifest in violence and uncertainty. The faith militant grows bolder, armed by Cersei's own decree, and begins imposing their harsh vision of justice. Meanwhile, the people grow restless, plagued by hunger, corruption, and fear. The city teeters on the brink, held together by fragile alliances and the pretense of royal authority. Beneath the Red Keep, schemes fester like wounds. Cersei's rule becomes increasingly tenuous, her triumphs hollow, her enemies closer than she realizes. As the pieces shift across the realm, the deeper threat, the one beyond petty thrones and personal revenge, remains unspoken by most. The true storm is gathering in the far north, but the kingdoms of men remain fixated on crowns, dragons, and grudges. The Game of Thrones continues, but the board itself is beginning to burn. In the aftermath of war, the Seven Kingdoms find themselves in a state of uneasy equilibrium. The conflicts that have consumed the realm for years have left deep scars, and though many factions have been decimated or weakened, the game for power continues. The nobility, once so sure of their control, now find themselves entangled in a more insidious struggle for dominance. One where alliances are temporary, and betrayal lurks in every shadow. As the power vacuum deepens, new players rise to challenge the old order, often with their own agendas that bring them into direct conflict with one another. Among the most notable of these new forces is the Ironborn, whose raids continue to disrupt the balance of power across the seas. Led by the fiercely ambitious Euron Greyjoy, the Ironborn are no longer content with the mere raiding of coastal villages. Euron seeks something far greater, an empire. His drive for power is both magnetic and terrifying, as he manipulates the very forces of the sea, and perhaps even darker forces, to solidify his claim to the throne of Westeros. Euron's rise is one of both charisma and ruthlessness, and his interactions with his family are a testament to his lack of regard for anything other than his own ascent. His brother, Victarion, is loyal but increasingly disillusioned by Euron's ambition. The Ironborn once valued the notion of the Kingsmoot, a democratic process of electing their king. But under Euron's leadership, those traditions are discarded in favor of a more dictatorial approach. Euron's iron grip tightens as he embarks on a dangerous journey to seek out the power of the ancient gods, both in the form of mystical artifacts and the machinations of dark forces. He is a man who seeks not just dominion over the seas, but the power to reshape the very world around him. His growing threat becomes one of the most pressing concerns for the leaders of Westeros, and his invasion becomes an ever-present danger on the horizon. While the Ironborn are pursuing their own path to power, in the heart of Westeros, the capital is racked with political maneuvering as Cersei Lannister's reign continues to deteriorate. After the collapse of her carefully crafted plans and her arrest by the faith militant, Cersei is forced to confront the full weight of her arrogance and her mistakes. She is a woman who had once been confident in her ability to manipulate those around her, her brother Tyrion, her son Tommen, her enemies in the Tyrells, only to see her empire crumble before her eyes. Now imprisoned, stripped of her power, Cersei's journey becomes one of desperation, as she seeks any opportunity to regain control. Her release from prison is bittersweet, and her triumph is marred by the realization that the power she once held is no longer hers to command. The High Sparrow has placed his faith in the Faith Militant, the religious military force that has taken control of the streets of King's Landing. Cersei's attempt to reassert control over the city and her subsequent vengeance on those she sees as enemies further isolates her from her once loyal allies. Yet even in her diminished state, Cersei's influence is not entirely gone. She continues to pull the strings from behind the scenes, working with her allies, including her remaining supporters in the Kingsguard, to undermine the High Sparrow and his forces. But the more she seeks to regain control, the more her obsession with power clouds her judgment. Meanwhile, in the far north, Jon Snow finds himself in a position of unparalleled responsibility. As the newly appointed Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, Jon is tasked with overseeing the defense of the realm against the growing threat from beyond the wall. The tension among the members of the Watch is palpable, as factions within the Order vie for control. While Jon's decision to allow the wildlings to cross into the realms of men brings him into direct conflict with many of his own men. The traditional views of the Night's Watch, which once upheld a strict code of isolation, are being challenged by the changing realities of the world. Jon, ever the idealist, believes that the survival of mankind should take precedence over ancient grudges, but his position makes him a target for those who see his actions as a betrayal of their sacred oath. Jon's journey becomes not just one of political leadership, but one of personal growth. As he navigates the complex political environment of the Watch, he is confronted with hard choices, some of which make him question his own morality. His decisions, from the treatment of the wildlings to his alliances with figures like Stannis Baratheon, begin to sow seeds of division among his allies. As his enemies circle closer, Jon must come to terms with the limitations of his own leadership and the bitter reality that doing the right thing often comes with unintended consequences. And then there is the looming shadow of the others, the White Walkers, whose presence grows ever stronger. Though their exact movements are unclear, their imminent arrival at the Wall remains one of the greatest fears of the men of the Night's Watch. The whispers of ancient prophecies and the long-forgotten dangers beyond the Wall hang over Jon's every decision. The true battle, the battle for survival itself, is yet to come. In the midst of all this chaos, the Stark children, scattered across the continent, continue to struggle to find their place in a world that has changed irreparably since the death of their father. Sansa, now under the protection of the Tyrells, is forced to navigate the treacherous waters of court life, all while plotting her eventual return to her home in the north. Arya, far from her family, pursues a path of vengeance that leads her down dark roads and deeper into the world of assassins. Bran, meanwhile, seeks understanding of his mystical powers in the caves of the Children of the Forest, hoping to unlock the secrets of the ancient magic that may hold the key to the survival of his family and his people. Everywhere in Westeros, the winds of change are blowing, and the once stable order of things is in tatters. The great houses, weakened by years of war, face the threat of extinction. New alliances are forged, while old loyalties are tested. The old gods and new gods' magic and prophecy all seem to intertwine, and the path forward is uncertain. As each character is drawn into the maelstrom of this political and supernatural conflict, one question remains at the forefront of everyone's mind. who will ultimately ascend the Iron Throne, and what will be the cost of their victory. As the story unfolds in the aftermath of war, the entire realm teeters on the brink of collapse and transformation. The kingdom, once united under the rule of the Targaryens and later the Baratheons, now finds itself deeply divided. At the heart of these divisions lies the Iron Throne, an object of fierce desire that represents the power to shape the future of Westeros. But the Iron Throne is no longer the simple prize of kings. It is now an unstable, frail institution, heavily contested by both old powers and emerging forces that threaten to tear the realm apart. Throughout this period of tumult, the characters from all corners of Westeros struggle to claim their place in the world. The story's complexity is reflected in how the focus shifts from grand battles and straightforward quests to the political and psychological turmoil of its characters. As the great houses collapse and reform, the true weight of power in Westeros becomes a question not just of who can claim the throne, but who can survive the endless machinations and betrayals of their allies and enemies alike. Cersei Lannister, once a powerful queen and mother, finds herself in a vulnerable position as her hold on power slips away. Having been temporarily imprisoned by the Faith militant, her return to the capital marks a period of reckoning. The one-time queen is now a shadow of her former self, desperate and paranoid, clinging to any vestige of influence she can find. Her obsession with revenge against those who have wronged her, be it the Tyrells, her enemies within the capital, or the religious zealots who now hold sway, becomes a driving force in her actions. Cersei's efforts to reclaim control of kings landing through manipulation and brutality show just how deeply her character has shifted from the cold, calculating queen to a woman consumed by pride and fear. However, in her quest to outmaneuver the Faith, Cersei makes alliances with the likes of the Kingsguard, and she even plays with the idea of marrying off her children to maintain control. Her decisions have far-reaching consequences, though, as her personal vendettas blind her to the long-term damage they may cause. Cersei's reign, one that once seemed invincible, now faces the real possibility of collapse. But her inability to step back from the edge and reconsider her course is perhaps her most tragic flaw. Elsewhere in Westeros, Jon Snow's journey continues as he grapples with his newfound role as Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. His leadership is fraught with tension, not just from the external threat of the White Walkers, but from within the Watch itself. Jon's willingness to protect the wildlings and allow them to pass through the wall is seen by many of his men as an act of treason. His decisions cause rifts that threaten to undermine his authority and spark internal strife. But Jon is not simply a leader trying to hold together a fracturing order. He is also a man coming to grips with his own identity. The question of his parentage still looms, casting shadows over his every action. The burden of leadership and the weight of a prophecy that seems to mark him as a pivotal figure in the future of the realm complicate Jon's journey even further. As the wildlings settle in the far north, Jon faces the looming threat of the others, those ancient and terrifying forces that are slowly but surely making their way south. The night is darkening, and with each passing day, the threat of the White Walkers becomes more tangible. Jon's struggle to unite his people against this existential threat highlights the sacrifices and moral complexities of leadership. His growing realization that no victory can come without a heavy cost only adds to his sense of isolation. Even as Jon stands as a symbol of hope for some, he is increasingly surrounded by enemies, both within the Watch and beyond, who question his every decision. In the East, Daenerys Targaryen's story takes a more dramatic turn as she continues to struggle with the weight of her birthright. Her conquest of Slaver's Bay, where she frees thousands of slaves and seeks to bring justice to a world of brutality, is part of a much larger story of reclaiming her identity as the last Targaryen and restoring her family's dynasty. Daenerys' power grows not just from her dragons, but from the respect and loyalty she garners from those around her. But her path is fraught with challenges. As a ruler, she must navigate the treacherous waters of diplomacy, deal with the internal struggles of her own followers, and maintain her focus while her enemies plot in the shadows. At the same time, Daenerys' quest for power reveals the conflict between her ideals of justice and the harsh realities of governance. She wrestles with the responsibility of ruling, understanding that mercy can be as dangerous as cruelty, and the burden of leadership weighs heavily on her, while Daenerys represents hope to the oppressed and the downtrodden. Her journey is not one of simple victory, but one of internal conflict and external pressures that challenge her every move. Meanwhile, in the Iron Islands, the Ironborn continue to be a significant force in the ongoing struggle for power. Euron Greyjoy's ambition is far more dangerous and expansive than any of his predecessors had dreamed. Euron seeks not just to rule the Iron Islands, but to reshape the fate of Westeros itself. His quest to gain control over the world beyond the waves leads him to make increasingly dangerous alliances with powerful, dark forces. His rise is marked by his overwhelming charisma, but also by a ruthless cunning that positions him as a truly dangerous player in the Game of Thrones. As we look to the future, it becomes clear that the ultimate battle for the Iron Throne will not be won through traditional means. Each leader's story is tied not just to the physical realm of Westeros, but to the deep, often supernatural forces that underpin their world. Whether it is the power of prophecy, magic, or family legacy, each of these figures will be shaped by their connection to something larger than themselves. The ultimate fate of the realm will be decided not just by swords and armies, but by the choices each character makes as they struggle with their identities, their pasts, and the terrifying unknowns that loom ever closer. The themes of A Feast for Crows, political intrigue, moral ambiguity, and the unrelenting quest for power are as complex as they are compelling. The book stands as a testament to the intricacies of human nature, showing how desire for control, fear, and ambition can drive individuals to unimaginable lengths. The world of Westeros is a fractured, dark place where survival often comes at the expense of the soul, and even the most noble of characters must face the consequences of their actions. The realm is on the edge of an uncertain future, and the story that unfolds is as much about the journey toward that future as it is about the consequences of living in a world ruled by power, betrayal, and survival. In the end, it is clear that no matter how the battle for the throne plays out, the true cost of victory may be something no one is prepared to pay. A Feast for Crows is a pivotal installment in George R.R. Martin's epic series, a tale of power, betrayal, and the fragile nature of human ambition. As the political landscape of Westeros shifts and the chaos of war settles into a complex web of alliances, rivalries, and personal struggles, the characters are forced to reckon with the harsh realities of the world they inhabit. The book stands as a haunting exploration of the costs of power, the price of survival, and the fragility of even the most well-laid plans. Throughout the novel, Martin deepens the complexity of his characters, many of whom find themselves on the edge of transformation. Whether it's Cersei's unraveling as a queen, Jon Snow's challenging leadership at the Wall, or Daenerys' rise in the East, the stakes have never been higher. Their journeys are fraught with moral dilemmas and harsh choices, often leading them into uncharted waters where they must confront their own demons and grapple with their shifting values. One of the most significant themes in A Feast for Crows is the exploration of leadership, what it means to rule, the burdens it carries, and the ways in which it can corrupt. Cersei, Jon, Daenerys, and the other characters are not simply fighting for power. They are wrestling with their own identities, their place in history, and the ever-present fear of failure. As the book examines the dynamics of power from multiple perspectives, it challenges readers to consider not just who deserves to rule, but what kind of world those rulers will create. The novel also expands the scope of the series, introducing new territories, cultures, and conflicts that enrich the world building for which Martin is known. Whether it's the grim Iron Islands, the conflict-ridden streets of King's Landing, or the distant shores of Slaver's Bay, each new setting brings with it a unique set of challenges and characters that deepen the series' complexity. The intricacies of Westeros and Essos provide a rich tapestry of human ambition, where the threads of fate pull in unpredictable directions. However, the brilliance of A Feast for Crows is not just in its complex characters and sprawling world building. It lies in its ability to reflect the human condition in all its complexity. The novel paints a world where the line between hero and villain is often blurred, where good intentions can lead to devastating consequences, and where the pursuit of power can turn even the most noble figures into unrecognizable versions of themselves. In this world, survival often requires choices that are morally ambiguous, and even the most virtuous characters must make sacrifices they never imagined they would have to endure. As the novel moves toward its conclusion, it leaves readers on the edge of anticipation, knowing that the winds of fate will continue to blow in unexpected directions. With each character facing their own personal battles, the question remains, who will ultimately rise to power, and what will be left of them when they do? Martin's refusal to provide easy answers, to let any character off the hook for their actions, ensures that the story remains unpredictable and compelling. The legacy of A Feast for Crows within the broader context of A Song of Ice and Fire lies in how it examines the costs of war, the choices made in pursuit of power, and the shifting nature of identity and loyalty. In a world where loyalty is fleeting and power is precarious, the characters of Westeros find themselves constantly on the edge of moral collapse. Their stories are a reminder that in the Game of Thrones, there are no true victories, only a series of precarious positions, where survival is often the only goal. In the end, A Feast for Crows serves as a bridge between the events of the previous books and the even greater trials yet to come. It solidifies Martin's reputation as a master of epic fantasy, able to weave together intricate plots, complex characters, and profound themes in a way that keeps readers captivated and questioning what will happen next. As the shadow of the White Walkers looms ever larger and the battle for the Iron Throne intensifies, the stakes have never been higher. But as always, the real question remains: who will pay the price for power, and what will be left of them when it's finally theirs?